Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page International. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. While France forces its COVID-19 passes on its citizens and copes with the fourth wave of infections, UK cases dropped 7 days in a row after lifting all restrictions. Scandal has rocked the Vatican. The biggest criminal trial in the Holy See's modern history started this week. Tunisia's president suspended parliament and dismissed the prime minister. Could this be another coup? At the end, I want to share with you a heartwarming story that will leave a smile on your face. Okay, let's get into it. French President Emmanuel Macron has really set a large part of the French population from all walks of life and regardless of political backgrounds against his government. A second round of anti-mandatory vaccination protests attracted over 160,000 people last Saturday. They chanted "Freedom, freedom," carrying placards denouncing Macron the tyrant, Big Pharma shackles freedom, and no to the pass of shame. The protest was triggered by the Parliament's new legislation to make COVID-19 passports a part of daily life and to make vaccination mandatory for health workers. Critics say the new law infringes on the freedoms of those who do not want to be vaccinated. The legislation requires, starting from September 30th, that everyone who is 12 and older will need to show proof of vaccination, a negative test, or their recent recovery from COVID whenever visiting public venues like restaurants, theaters, museums, as well as taking trains and airplanes. All workers in the healthcare sector will be required to be vaccinated by September 15th or risk suspension. The government will also outline how to handle vaccination documents from other countries. The rules will remain effective until at least November 15th, depending on the virus situation, and we all know what that means. Despite all the public objections, Macron's government argued that the rules are needed to protect vulnerable groups and hospitals. France recorded almost 23,000 new COVID-19 cases on Saturday, twice as many as the previous week. Authorities cautioned that the uptick meant that the country had officially entered a fourth wave of infections. Across the English Channel, the COVID situation is quite optimistic after the UK lifted all related restrictions. COVID-19 cases in the UK fell for the seventh day in a row on July 27th to 23,511 from 46,588 a week prior. JP Morgan's chief European economist David Mackey said, "It appears that the easing of restrictions on July 19th did not lead to a dramatic shift in people's behavior, as we expected." Mackey put forward several possible reasons, including the end of the Euro 2020 soccer tournament, the start of school vacation, or the impact of seasonal weather, but he thinks that these are insufficient to explain the dramatic scale of the decline. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said on Wednesday that it was important to avoid jumping to conclusions and remember that the virus is still out there. France wasn't the only country that protested this weekend. Thousands took to the streets of Sydney and Melbourne, Australia, in order to protest against the government's heavy-handed COVID-19 restrictions. Attendees carried signs and banners reading "Wake Up Australia" and "Drain the Swamp." Previous protests had only garnered several hundred demonstrators, but Saturday's event saw the attendance balloon to several thousand people due to the announcement of a 5-week lockdown in Greater Sydney. Officials and police are cracking down on the protests and have set up a special task force to do so. They're trying to track down those who attended the anti-lockdown events. So far, they have received 10,000 tips and identified more than 250 people who attended. The police are also in the process of reviewing hundreds of hours of footage from social media, also from CCTV and from body-worn cameras. They warned that repeat protests and similar behavior won't be tolerated again. Currently, 5 million residents are under stay-at-home orders and cannot leave their houses except for specific reasons. Last week, construction sites were shut down as part of the government's tightening control. After severe flooding in Europe and China, large regions of India have also been ravaged by floods and landslides following heavy monsoon rains. The monsoons have claimed at least 164 lives, with more than 64 people missing and thousands evacuated. While half of the world is drowning, other parts are going up in flames. In British Columbia, Canada, the Wildfire Service says that there are 257 wildfires currently burning in the province, down from about 300 earlier this week. There are now 58 evacuation orders in place, affecting about 4,400 households. Nearly 17,500 properties are also on evacuation alert. Residents have been notified, and they should be ready to leave on short notice. Earlier this month, the town of Lytton in British Columbia was almost completely destroyed by fire in less than 20 minutes. And in Spain, around 300 firefighters, including members of the military emergency unit, are battling a wildfire in northern Spain. The flames have consumed over 3,000 acres of woodland in a rural area that is 62 miles west of Barcelona. Before we continue, I hope you're liking our new show, Front Page International. Please help us to spread the word by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. And if you want to help Front Page grow, please consider supporting us by donating to our donor box. The link is in the description below. We here at Front Page thank you for your support. Okay, let's get back into it. Scandal has rocked the Vatican. The biggest criminal trial in the Vatican's modern history opened on July 27th in a modified courtroom at the Vatican's museums. Vatican prosecutors have alleged a jaw-dropping series of scandals in the trial against Cardinal Giovanni Angelo Berciu and 9 others. The trial is the culmination of a 2-year investigation into the Holy See's flawed €350 million London real estate venture. The Vatican indicted Berciu earlier in July for several alleged financial crimes, including embezzlement, extortion, fraud, and forgery. Pope Francis has in many ways already convicted Berciu. Last year, Francis presented Berciu with evidence that he had sent €100,000 in Vatican funds to a charity that is run by Berciu's brother. Francis secured Berciu's resignation as head of the Vatican's saint-making office and then stripped him of his rights as cardinal. Berciu has denied any wrongdoing. Berciu is also linked to a mysterious figure who is also on trial, Cecilia Marongna. Prosecutors allege that Marongna has embezzled €575,000 in Vatican funds. The money had been authorized by Berciu for ransom payments in order to free Catholic hostages, but the bank records show that the Vatican wire transfers were used instead to pay bills at luxury shops such as Prada and Louis Vuitton, and for boutique hotels. Marongna says the money was legitimate compensation and reimbursement for her intelligence-related expenses. At the heart of the case is a London real estate deal in a building which is in the city's swank Chelsea neighborhood with an investment of €200 million and a payout of €15 million to a broker named Gianluigi Torzi in 2014. By November 2018, the original investment had lost €18 million, so the Vatican sought an exit strategy. Prosecutors say Torzi swindled the Holy See. He secretly reconstructed 1,000 shares in the property's new holding company in a way that gave him full voting rights. Torzi then extorted the Vatican for €15 million to get control of the building that the Vatican thought it had already acquired. Prosecutors are accusing Torzi of extorting the Vatican for money, for fraud, money laundering, embezzlement, and other charges. He also denies any wrongdoing. The Vatican's financial oversight agency is also at fault for failing to stop the deal. They will also be tried at court. With a marathon 7-hour hearing, the landmark Vatican fraud trial has been adjourned until October 5th. On July 25th, Tunisia's president, Kais Saied, suspended the legislature, fired the prime minister, as well as other top members of the government, including the justice and defense ministers. Saied claimed that the action is a response to the nationwide protests over Tunisia's economic troubles and the government's handling of COVID-19. The North African country's economy was already flailing before the pandemic hit, with an 18% unemployment rate. COVID just aggravated the situation. Young people protested earlier this year demanding jobs and an end to police brutality. On the night after the announcement, the president's supporters gathered on the street honking cars and firing fireworks to celebrate his decision. One supporter said, "These are courageous decisions. Saied is unblocking Tunisia. This is the president we love." One man in his 40s watched on without enthusiasm and said, "These fools are celebrating the birth of a new dictator." Saied will assume the executive authority with the help of the government until he appoints another prime minister. He warned against any armed response to his actions, saying, "Whoever shoots a bullet, the armed forces will respond with bullets." However, he said that the decision to suspend the legislature and dismiss the prime minister were to restore social peace. Despite the president's clear stand on the issue of violence, conflicts still erupted. The day after the announcement, supporters and protesters faced off outside the parliament building, pelting each other with stones and hurling insults. Some were injured by the flying objects. The military surrounded the parliament and government palace, stopping members of parliament and state workers from entering the buildings. Parliamentary Speaker Rashid Ghannouchi, who heads the Islamist party that dominates the legislature, said the president didn't consult with him or the prime minister as required. He called the president's move a coup. Former President Monsef Marzouki called for political dialogue, saying, "We made a huge leap backward tonight. We are back to dictatorship." However, President Saied, who was a former constitutional law professor, rejected the coup allegation. Starting on Tuesday, the president imposed a nationwide curfew from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., prohibiting activities except for basic needs or for urgent health reasons. Gatherings of more than 3 people in public places are also prohibited. The United States, France, and Italy appealed to Saied's government to respect the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. The German Foreign Ministry said the Tunisian president appeared to be relying on a pretty broad interpretation of the Constitution. There's still not enough evidence to call the Tunisian president's move a coup, but if it truly is one, Tunisia becomes another country heading away from democracy and towards dictatorship. Under the excuse of the virus, then the CCP virus becomes an even more suitable name as it represents communist dictatorship. With the Olympics in full swing, and with so much controversy going on in this year's Games, I want to share this story with you to remind everyone of the true Olympic spirit. Have you noticed this? Even though this year's Olympics has no spectators, there's a lifeguard at the poolside on standby. Wait a second, swimmers participating in the Olympic Games still need lifeguards to save their lives? Yes, because not all swimmers can swim. The story begins over 20 years ago with the 100-meter freestyle race at the Sydney Olympics in the year 2000. Eric Moussambani, a swimmer from Equatorial Guinea, became one of the most famous competitors that year. From the moment he walked into the arena, he drew laughter from the audience. Because he didn't even have a swimsuit, he walked into the race wearing a t-shirt and track pants. A kind-hearted South African coach called him over and lent him an extra set of swim trunks so that he would not be disqualified from the race. Eric's heat had 3 competitors. They waited on the swimming blocks to start the race, but the athletes from Nigeria and Tajikistan were so nervous that they literally jumped the gun and were disqualified. Then Eric became the only one left in the competition, and all the world's cameras were pointed at him. When the gunshot sounded, he closed his eyes and jumped into the pool. Wait, why does he look so different from the other swimmers? His limbs are uncoordinated and he's awkwardly tilting his head back and gasping for air instead of the usual to the side and under the arm. In the first 50 meters, he's really struggling. In the second half, he was almost drowning. In the last 25 meters, his entire body was almost underwater. The audience was worried that he would drown. Finally, Eric finished the race with a time of 1 minute and 52 seconds, creating a new record for the Olympic men's 100-meter freestyle, the slowest record. I didn't know how to coordinate my breathing, Eric said in an interview later. In the last 50 meters, he was going to give up. He said, I couldn't feel my legs or arms. Everything was very heavy. When I heard people clapping and cheering my name, that gave me more power to finish. After the competition, a new position was added to the Olympic swimming competition, lifeguards. The fascinating story behind Eric's participation in the Games has come to light. When the new millennium started, the International Olympic Committee created a special program to give athletes from less developed countries the opportunity to participate. As a result, Equatorial Guinea received a wildcard spot for the Olympics. 22-year-old Eric learned about the chance to participate in the Olympic Games on the radio and ran to the improvised National Sports Institute to sign up. It had always been his dream to compete in the Olympics. Of course, there was no one to compete with him, so he qualified as the first Olympic swimmer from Equatorial Guinea. Then he remembered that he couldn't swim at all, and the competition was only 9 months away. And what's worse, there was neither a professional pool nor a swimming coach that could be found all over the country. He ran to the river and asked the fishermen to help him as he lay on a stool to practice how to paddle his hands and feet. He practiced how to keep himself from drowning in the river, which was infested with crocodiles and water snakes. Finally, a hotel with a swimming pool agreed to let him swim 3 times a week for an hour each time. The pool was 20 meters long, and Eric signed up for the 50-meter freestyle race. He calculated in his mind that less than 3 round trips would be enough for 50 meters. That's not too hard. Flash forward, it's now the Olympics. He arrived at the International Aquatic Centre in Sydney. Here, for the first time in his life, he saw a 50-meter-long Olympic-sized pool with a lane so wide and long it made his head spin. The Equatorial Guinea Swimming Committee gave him a big surprise. They mistakenly signed him up for the 100-meter race instead of his intended 50 meters. The race will start in 4 days, but he still doesn't know any breathing techniques or how to turn in a pool. So the next few days, he would wander about the Olympic Village, and when he saw tall athletes pass by, he would come up and shyly ask, "Do you know how to swim? Can you teach me breathing techniques and turning techniques?" One time he stopped a big tall guy and asked for advice on how to do the butterfly kick. The big tall guy thought that he was a security guard, and after some explanation told Eric, "I have a competition tomorrow. Keep up with your practice after work." Then, with a serious face, Eric replied, "What a coincidence. I have a competition tomorrow too. What are you competing in?" "Men's 100-meter freestyle." "Isn't that a coincidence? I'm also doing the 100-meter freestyle. What's your name?" "My name is Ian Thorpe." This big, tall guy turned out to be the Olympic swimming champion of that year, the famous Australian swimmer, the Torpedo. The next day, Thorpe watched Eric's entire swim and then told reporters, "This is the true embodiment of the Olympic spirit." In those Olympics, the world remembered the very fast Torpedo, but it also remembered the very slow Eric the Eel. Eric faced many obstacles along his Olympic journey, but the ending was a heartwarming and happy one. After the competition, his swim goggles were sold at a charity auction for $4,638. The world-famous swimwear company Speedo featured him in advertisements. Thorpe and the Australian swim team invited him to dinner and took him on a tour of Sydney's harbour. A lot of people asked for his autograph, and he became famous. But back in his home country, only 10% of the population has a television set. The majority of people in his country had no idea what had happened. He was an amazingly unknown person once he returned. After the 2000 Olympics ended, he earned some money and took swimming lessons. 4 years later, he set a personal record of 57 seconds. Eric, this time filled with confidence, decided to participate in the 2004 Athens Olympics, but the Equatorial Guinea government said that his passport photo was invalid, so they didn't let him participate. Some say that it's because he is the only swimmer in the entire country and they didn't want to build an entire swimming pool just for one person. Even so, Eric didn't give up. in 2006 at the International Swimming Meet in Germany. He clocked his 52.18 record for the 100 meter. That's a whole minute faster than his result in Sydney. This record surpassed the gold medalist in 1968. In 2012, he became the coach for Equatorial Guinea's national swim team. He made no income from that position. He is an engineer by day and trains young swimmers for free by night. Under Eric's dedication and hard work, Equatorial Guinea now has 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. At the Tokyo Olympics, Equatorial Guinea sent 5 athletes, and one of them was a swimmer. He may not have an Olympic medal, but few have ever displayed the same amount of never give up Olympic spirit as Eric the EO. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with at least one of your friends, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page International, and we will see you next time.